Gary, you know, someone tossed a subject over to me, and I thought since we've had a lot of arguments about this in the past, actually we have a lot of agreement about it too. But it's kind of controversial. Every time I get interviewed by a critic or a newspaper reporter, they always have some kind of a question about, of course, jazz and what is jazz and what's the future of jazz, the state of jazz.
Yeah.
Some will say, oh, isn't jazz dead, or is jazz alive, or what does jazz look like today? And personally, for me, every time I say the word or hear the word, I see different images pop up in different people's minds about what they think it is. What do you think
Well, I
it is?
think that's a good approach to take to it, is that everybody has their own concept of what is jazz music, first of all, and then just among musicians even, you get the different opinion, and I've come to the conclusion that it has a lot to do with whether that particular musician is working at the time or not. If you say to the guy, hey, how's the state of jazz, and if he's got the rest of his year is booked up and he's touring, he says things are going great, the business is wonderful. And if on the other hand the book is kind of slim and kind of empty, he says, gee, things have never been so bad, the whole thing is you know, fading away.
Well, that's looking at it from an individual view. Like if I can.
Well, so you're asking my opinion?
I can dig that. But
well,
I mean,
I'm working.
I mean, but like, what do you think of when someone says, you know, jazz? What kind of music do you think of? What do you include in that category in your mind?
Right. To me, the heart of the essence of jazz is the art of improvisation. And although there's a lot of other music that certainly I include as jazz, which may be vocal music or something where it isn't primarily improvisation, I think as a player, certainly what counts most to me is the individual musician standing up and creating a solo spontaneously. And as long as that art remains healthy, then I think jazz is going to keep chugging right along.
Yeah, I agree with you. Why don't you ask me what I think of jazz?
Yeah, chick, I'm dying to know. Because I know there are other kinds of jazz, of course, that we would categorize as jazz that aren't focused on improvisation. So that, you know, there is more to it than just improv. But somehow, to me, that's the heart. But
you know what I
what's
think
your
of?
Opinion?
What I think of is that there's a spirit that like if I look at the music world in general, and then I try to separate different parts of it. The part that I personally get attracted to, whatever you want to call it, is this part of music where you're free to take styles and use them, or not take styles and use them. You're free to create a new effect in a way that doesn't particularly have to fit into this or that. You're free to create one effect and then not have to keep on creating that same effect, but create a different one. So in other words, any place I look into the music business where I get the spirit of a freedom of always making a new creation, that's what I like to do. And that seems to fit generally around the area of jazz.
Yeah. I think the jazz player is the ultimate musical traveler. You can visit every musical land that's out there, and if you hear something that you can relate to, you can join in and play with it, whether it's classical musicians or tango musicians or pop musicians or whatever. If you can relate to the music yourself, then you can find something to play and become part of it.
Yeah.
And I think only jazz musicians are as flexible and adaptable as to be able to do that.
That's the part I like, is the joy of creating. Well, okay, we have more to come, and see ya.